everybody, and welcome back to Roll with Advantage. Today we're going to be talking about something that can really elevate your campaign's villainy. Cults.
This world has become so corrupt.
As long as I exist, I have free will.
And I am doing this of my own free will. My own free will.
That's absurd. What's all this doomsday stuff? What's all this prophetic stuff?
And not just any cults, though. We're going to be talking about creating compelling, believable, and downright disturbing cults that will have your players genuinely concerned. Not just about their friendly innkeeper who keeps mentioning the coming of the dawn, but also probably their dungeon master who they'll say, "Joe, do you need to talk? We're really concerned about you." Meanwhile, you're just like scribbling nonsense in a foreign language, just ancient eldritch tongue on a stone tablet saying, no, the prophecy, right? You're going to get so into it that they're not even going to be able to get their DM back. And that's what we want. That's the level of commitment you need to have to be a good DM. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Aren't cults just religions where the guys at the top know it's a scam? Sometimes, yeah, but there is a lot more to it. When you look at something like Heaven's Gate, which was the UFO cult from the 90s where 39 people believing they would board an alien spacecraft, Marshall Applewhite wasn't just running a con. The truly terrifying thing is that he genuinely believed what he was preaching. I have run several cult storylines in my campaigns, and the one thing that I consistently remember years later is that it isn't about the dragon fight or the fancy magic item, it's the infiltrating of that creepy cult compound where everyone kept saying, "The stars align for those who see." Those moments stick because they tap right into something fundamentally unsettling about human psychology that we all recognize from the real world. In terms of recognizing things from the real world, I'm actually going to have a video about that, talking about why Shakespeare's plays are actually great inspiration for DMs because of his universal plot and characters. So be sure to subscribe so you can see that when it comes out. So today, we're going to be looking at what makes real world cults tick. We're going to break down those elements and then rebuild them for your fantasy setting. And don't worry, we're going to go ahead and keep this educational and mostly respectful while making it also useful for your games. Let's go ahead and dive in.
Your only chance to evacuate is to leave with us.
Part 1. What makes a cult different from a religion? So, first things first, we need to talk about what actually separates a cult from a religion in D&D terms. In a world where the gods literally grant spells and sometimes show up for dinner, the line can get kind of blurry. In my research and experience, the difference comes down to 4 main factors. Isolation and control, that cults actively separate members from outside influence. Charismatic leadership, one person or maybe a small group of people with absolute authority. Special knowledge or salvation, only cult members have access to the truth. And then finally, that us versus them mentality, that the outside world is dangerous, wrong, or even doomed. So these just aren't theoretical. We see them consistently throughout history. The People's Temple under Jim Jones started as a progressive church focused on racial integration and social justice. But once they moved to Jonestown in Guyana, Jones could control every single aspects of the members' lives, what they ate, who they talked to, and what information they received. Isolation is what made that tragic mass suicide possible. Over 900 people died because they had no outside perspective to challenge Jones's authority. Or we can think about, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this, Om Shinrin-kyo. You do not know how many takes it took me to get that right. In Japan, they released sardine gas into the Tokyo subway in 1955, killing 13 people. Their leader, Shoko Ashara, convinced highly educated people, including scientists and doctors, that he could levitate, and his bathwater had healing properties. I mean, does that remind you of? So, I mean, if we take a look at over there, tell you what's also a cult. E-girls, okay? Don't fall for it. It's spooky ooky magic, okay? Stay with me, all right? You're better than that. That bathwater does not have healing properties. In fact, it's probably the opposite, all right? You don't need it. Don't listen to them. Look at me. Okay, all right. They're going away. It's only me, all right? That and what we just talked about is definitely charismatic leadership taken to the extreme. Imagine translating that into a cult of Tiamat. They live in a compound deep in the mountains. They follow a charismatic dragonborn prophet who claims to have direct communication with Tiamat. They believe that only they will be spared when that five-headed dragon queen remakes the world, and all non-believers are the deceived. I mean, you can see how nicely that translates. So let's go ahead and break down each element and see how we can use it. Part 2, isolation and control. Real-world cults thrive on isolating members from friends, family, and outside information. The Branch Davidsons under David Koresh holed up in their compound in Waco, Texas. Members were physically separated from the outside world, but more importantly, they were told that Koresh could correctly interpret scripture. That right there is something that's really important because that's intellectual isolation, cutting people off from independent thought. Scientology, and I hate to be the one to break it to you, but Scientology, also kind of a cult, uses a similar tactic with their disconnection policy, forcing members to cut contact with anyone who's critical of the church, including family members. But isolation in D&D can take fascinating new forms. So in your campaign, you could create a cult called the Whispering Veil, but they don't physically isolate members. Instead, each initiate was given a special amulet that created a permanent, low-level illusion effect. When wearing it, they literally could not perceive certain things, like poverty, evidence contradicting cult teachings, or the true appearance of their leader. That right there is controlling information. Other things you could consider in your games is a cult compound protected by illusion magic to make it appear abandoned. Members who undergo a ritual that magically binds them from speaking about the cult's secrets. A cult that only meets in the Feywild where time passes differently, slowly disconnecting members from their previous lives. Or magical tattoos that allow leaders to monitor members' thoughts and control them if they stray. I mean, imagine this, okay? In your campaign, the cultists have those tattoos, all right? Your players, they finally catch one of the cultists. They beat him down, they take him in for interrogation, and they start talking, and it seems like the cult member might actually break. They might convince them that what they've been taught is wrong, and you see them, they're like weeping. They're like, fine, I'll tell you. I was blind, but God, how can I have been so foolish? How could... Well... very interesting. You broke one of them. I did not think anyone would get this far. I will be keeping an eye on all of you. That is very, very intriguing. And then immediately the guy bites his tongue off and he starts using his teeth to claw at his mouth, just trying to rip as much as he can, even though he's tied down. He starts to shake the chair, throws himself onto the ground, starts rolling around trying to break the chair. And then he's literally like wounded, his mouth is bleeding. They might try and heal him, they might try and do whatever, but he's just gonna keep taking control, keep trying to do what he can to just break this guy. And then the party, what do? Do they let him continue to be controlled whenever that cult leader wants? Do they put him out of his misery? Do they try and get more information? That right there, that is a sexy moment, all right? That's a moment that you could take home and show to mom, right? Like, Mom, I want you to meet this moment. I'm in love. All right, we're gonna get married, all right? That's what you want to be able to do with those really good moments. Part 3, charismatic leadership. Charismatic leadership is the centerpiece of most cults. Charles Manson convinced his followers that he was both Jesus and Satan. I mean, that's gotta be at least like a 22 in charisma, right? I mean, come on, am I right? Yeah. Yeah, he convinced his followers to murder a lot of people. Maybe a little inappropriate to joke about. Whoops. But yeah, he was able to manage to convince his followers to do that, and most of them ended up being young women from middle-class families, and they committed horrific murders. And what's truly disturbing is how he did it. He created this apocalyptic vision he called Helter Skelter, a race war where he claimed the Beatles were secretly predicting it in their music. He took vulnerable people, isolated them at his ranch, and gradually normalized extreme ideas through drugs, sex, and manipulation. Now in D&D, we can take charismatic leadership to a whole new level. Maybe your cult leader is genuinely enchanting people with subtle magic. Maybe they've made a pact with a powerful entity that grants them supernatural persuasiveness. Maybe they're possessed by an ancient being whose personality gradually overwrites theirs. Maybe they're not even the real leader. Maybe they're just a puppet for something hiding in the shadows. One of my favorite approaches for this is creating a cult leader who genuinely believes their own delusions. Maybe there is no giant monster in the abyss that they'll be summoning by the end of this cult, but they believe there is. And maybe it's like a Kuatoa thing. If they believe hard enough, something will answer that call. Maybe it's not this concerted effort of a great demon locked away in the abyss. Maybe they accidentally open a door and something comes through that they didn't plan on. That's pretty spicy, isn't it? So here's the thing, though, about charismatic leaders. What makes them dangerous isn't just their charisma, it's their ability to identify what people desperately want and promise them exactly that. Salvation, purpose, belonging, power, eternal life. These all work in our world. And in D&D, where such things are actually possible, those promises become even more compelling. That's why so many people in fantasy worlds and media join cults, because it's not some ephemeral, well, maybe, it's real. It's really real, okay? To those people. Not really real in real life. Much to my dismay, if I could get magical powers, I would join a cult. Yes, I know you've all been thinking it. The answer is yes, okay? Let's move on. Part 4, special knowledge or salvation. Cults always offer something exclusive. Special knowledge, guaranteed salvation, or a unique path to power that only they possess. When I was doing research for this video, I found a cult that I would have joined if I was alive to join it back in the 90s. The Order of the Solar Temple. Like I said, they were active in the 90s, and they convinced members that they were knights from the Middle Ages reincarnated for a special mission. They conducted elaborate rituals and ceremonies, claiming special members would be transported to a planet orbiting Cyrus after death. This special knowledge, sadly, led to a murder-suicide ritual that killed 74 people across Switzerland, France, and Canada. Wow. I would not have joined that cult. I thought that it was a fun one. You know, like the shoo-ba-dee-doo-doo. I thought it was one of those cults. I didn't realize that. That's tragic. Anyway, so similarly, QAnon functions like a cult by offering special knowledge that only certain people can decode, claiming to reveal secret government operations and conspiracies that the mainstream can't see. The power of holding secret truth is incredibly alluring. And yes, if you are here and you believe that QAnon is like not a cult and is like all factual information, please get help, okay? It's not even me getting political, all right? If I'm getting political, you'll be able to tell. You are hurting, and you need someone to hug you, okay? I'll do it if you want me to. Bring it in. That's good, right? Yeah. All right. But what about in D&D? What special knowledge or powers might they actually hold? So, for example, the cult maybe does have magical powers that they grant to devoted followers. Maybe their prophecies start coming true because they're manipulating events behind the scenes, or maybe they just start coming true. Ooh, that's kind of spooky. The promise of ascension is really a transformation into something inhumane, and maybe their divine being that they worship is actually a powerful fiend, maybe an aberration, or maybe a forgotten god who feels scorned by his followers that abandoned him 10,000 years. So he's coming back to wreak havoc and seek vengeance against the humanoid races of Faerun, or whatever your homebrew world's called. What this does is it creates an interesting moral dilemma for players. If a cult's promises are partially true, how do they convince potential members it's still not worth it? Some cultists might be fully aware of the dark truth and embrace it anyway. People are evil. People are so evil most of the time, you would not believe how hard it is to find a person with empathy. And if you don't believe me, if you say, well, no, Joe, I feel like most of the time people are good, work in retail for a month, all right? And you will slowly see your faith in humanity trickle down. You'll meet one nice person every 10. You'll meet 5 indifferent people every 10. You know those other 4 people? Those other 4 people are the most evil sons of you have ever met. They do not care about you. They would. You remember in the last video about DM spring cleaning that I did? Remember that poor elf level 20 DMPC that I frickin' strangled and sent down the river? If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out that video. But they'd happily do that to you if it meant they could get 5% off their $4 order, okay? I worked in retail, if you couldn't tell. Not now. God. Oh. Part 5, the us versus them mentality.
How we would speak of them and how they would speak of us. Now you keep saying us. Who do you think you are?
You see, cults thrive on creating sharp division between members and non-members. The outside world is often portrayed as doomed, corrupted, or incapable of accepting the truth. The Exclusive Brethren, which was an ultra-conservative Christian group, called outsiders worldlies, and severely restricted contact with them. They can't eat with non-members, attend university, or use technology that could expose them to outside ideas. I mean, even family members who leave are completely shunned. Heaven's Gate took this to another level with their belief that Earth was about to be recycled or wiped clean, and only by leaving their human bodies, their vehicles, could they ascend to the next level. This urgency, this belief that disaster is imminent and only the cult had the solution, it creates incredible pressure to conform. In the real world, doomsday predictions are an occult classic. You know, they happen all the time. Pun intended. Okay, super fun topic of conversation we're covering. People dying. Woohoo! I think there's a serious, conversation to be had about rehashing cults and cold cases for entertainment. But hey, get in while the getting's good, right? The family radio group, led by Harold Camping, predicted that the rapture would occur on May 21st, 2011. They were wrong. When it didn't happen, they just revised the date to October 21st. I mean, can you imagine? Honestly, where like you do something wrong at work and you're like, oh no, sorry. I said that I'd have that done next week. What do you do? You were wrong, No, we'll just keep pushing it back. It's gonna happen eventually. So, broken clock is right twice a day. So in D&D, when it comes to that level of stakes, they can be even higher. Have legitimate prophecies about the coming catastrophe that they plan to cause, maybe, or they just start happening. They might claim that those without magical abilities are lesser beings destined for servitude, or they might believe that the material plane is corrupt shadow of a true reality. Oh, that one's pretty interesting. What you could run in your game is you could have a group called the Purified, who they believe the world was corrupt by the creation of false gods. Only those who underwent their special ritual could see beyond the veil to the true reality. The twist? Their ritual were opening their minds to the far realm, and they slowly were becoming thralls to mind flayers who were manipulating them the entire time. Sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? So then, part 6, putting it all together. Now that we've broken down all the components, let me put together a sample cult for you that you could drop into your campaign next session if you wanted to. We have the Crimson Renewal. This cult operates in plain sight, as it's a healing house and a charity in a major city. Their symbol is a phoenix rising from a drop of blood. In terms of isolation and control, members live in dormitories where they're subject to purification, constantly drinking special teas that actually contain mind-affecting herbs and cause mild hallucinations. They're required to donate their possessions and cut ties with diverse influences, which would be friends and family. They have a very charismatic leader. Their leader, Sister Amaryllis, an elderly woman with a grandmotherly demeanor and seemingly miraculous healing powers. Unknown to most members, she's actually a Cambion, disguising her fiendish nature, using the natural charisma to enhance subtle enchantment magic. In terms of special knowledge or salvation, the cult promises a great cleansing is coming that will purge the world of disease, aging, and death. Only those who have undergone their blood rituals will survive to inherit this new world. The ritual gradually infuses members with fiendish essence, creating willing vessels for devilish possession. Then finally, us versus them. Some members are taught that the outside world is infected with invisible corruption that their special sight allows them to see. They genuinely believe that they're saving people by converting them, and that resistance is a symptom of the corruption fighting back. The hook? The cult's healing powers are real. They're genuinely helping people with medical issues, making them popular with the common folk. By the time anyone realizes what's happening beneath the surface, the cult has already deeply established roots in the community. Whew, and that brings us to our conclusion. Friends and family, the beauty of cults in D&D is that they can create villains and villain organizations with layers. Not every cultist is evil. Many of them are just deceived, they're desperate, or they're searching for meaning. This gives the players a choice beyond just kill the bad guys. Can they deprogram the cult members? Expose the leadership? Or will they discover the cult knows something important, forcing a difficult alliance with the real big bad evil guy? Remember, the best cults in your game will be the ones tailored to your world and your players. Use their character backstories, fears, and desires to create cult narratives that feel personal. You might have a player that has a 17-page backstory and you know there are a couple of NPCs in there. Why not throw that player a bone and put one of those NPCs as a member of the cult, somebody who was swayed and corrupted? That's a great way to hook your player into the cult, to really care about it. So with that, have you ever used any cults in your D&D games? Drop a comment below with the experiences you've had or any ideas you've wanted to run. And if you're a player watching this, maybe don't share this with your DM. I mean, you know. Unless you do want a super creepy, super cool cult in your next session. You know, who would want that? Not me, that's for sure. Till next time, happy rolling, and remember, question those who ask for your complete devotion and all of your gold pieces. All right? Thanks for watching, everybody, and we will see you in the next one.